The issue of gay marriage will soon come back to the center of national discussion as the U.S. Supreme Court is set to rule on two key cases this month. Today, we're sitting down with the president of Indy Pride to talk about the issues facing the LGBT community and this week's Indy Pride events. Then Indianapolis is stepping onto the international stage with the world's most popular sport. A big match is coming to the Circle City, and a new professional team is launching soon. Plus, our political insiders join us on this edition of Indianapolis This Week.
From RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
Welcome to Indianapolis This Week. I'm Rafael Sanchez. In just the last 31 days, 4 states have officially legalized same-sex marriage. They include Colorado, Delaware, Rhode Island, and Minnesota. In total, there are now 12 states that allow same-sex marriage in the United States. The Supreme Court is weighing on 2 cases that could define this issue for the nation, with the ruling set to be handed out sometime this month. One case involves the constitutionality of the Defense of Marriage Act. The other involves California's Proposition 8 and whether same-sex couples have a fundamental right to marry. Attitudes towards same-sex marriage are changing. Recent polls show a majority of Americans believe same-sex couples should be allowed to wed. Even one of Indiana's own U.S. senators has changed his position on the issue to be in favor of same-sex marriage. When Joe Donnelly changed that position, he wrote in his own words, "I have been thinking about my past positions and votes. In doing so, I have concluded that the right thing to do is to support marriage equality for all." Joining us now is Nicholas Murphy. He is with Indy Pride. He's the president of that organization, of the board of directors, which is right in the middle of Pride Week right now. Mr. Murphy, thank you for joining us, Indianapolis This Week. Will the U.S. Supreme Court side on this issue of same-sex marriage? Will you see that day, and will it come this month?
I do believe the verdict will come down. I'm not totally sure how it's going to go. I personally think it's going to be a split decision. I think DOMA is probably much more of a slam dunk, if you will, because I think it's much more of it goes much more against the Constitution than Prop 8, which is much more of a state-oriented. So I can see them totally throwing that back to California. But DOMA, I think, is one that's definitely has a lot more potential to help.
And when you say DOMA, we're talking about the Defense of Marriage
Correct.
Act, right?
Correct.
And so how do you see that benefiting this community and all the communities in our country?
Well,
your position.
I think it'll open the door, and I think it may, even though it's not the Proposition 8 per se, I think, one of the things that happened this year with the legislature is they wanted to see how the Supreme Court was going to rule before they talked about the amendment here. And I really think DOMA will make them think, well, this is sort of, this decision will make it easier for us to not necessarily have to take this measure to amend our Constitution. So I really think it opens up a lot of different possibilities. But I guess we're just going to really have to wait and see.
So you just mentioned that the legislature was considering to change the Constitution in amendment. They're going to hold off to see what the U.S. Supreme Court does. Do you see that action from the legislature as a hostile move, or do you understand that people have some religious convictions when it comes to this issue?
I really think it does come down to religion for a lot of people, because it really is already in the Constitution, but they want to take that extra step to totally, highlight it, if you will.
So, but do you see it as being hostile then? I mean, then do you get when people say, I may support the union between a man and a woman and a woman, but religiously I can't really voice that?
If you put it that way, I would say there is some hostility.
I don't want to put it any way that I want you to be able to lead the discussion, but I'm just trying to understand when you say that it's not hostile, why don't you see it as being hostile?
It's difficult to say necessarily that it's hostile, because I think for a lot of people, they certainly know members of the LGBT community, and I think if it were taken on a case-by-case basis, they'd be like, yes, sure, I support you. But when it comes to saying that, I think it gets messy when people start viewing it as a church issue, and that the state is going to be telling the church that they need to recognize marriage equality. And really, when I think the reason why the stance has changed and has moved is that it's very much a governmental thing, and people seeing marriage and really the marriage equality being the government just recognizing these couples, and it takes the religion out of it per se. But it's murky. It's totally murky, and so yes, there is some hostility, but I think people are coming around.
Now, we've seen in pop culture, TV programs have a lot of gay characters. Sports athletes have come out. Jason Collins with the NBA. Andrew Luck just the other day mentioned the fact that the NFL should be ready for a gay athlete if he should come out. This is what he had to say.
I hope no one would treat him any differently than any straight player. You know, no special treatment. He's just another guy, another part of it, and it's none of our business. You know, sexual preference of people. So, you know, I hope if someone's thinking about it, that they do come out as gay and are a professional football player, and it makes them happier and it makes their life easier, then I think they should do it.
Does that help the argument? Because he goes on to say that this is the 21st century, let's move on. Absolutely, and it's certainly it's indicative of the generational shift. Because I mean, Andrew Luck is a young guy, and these are, you know, as the generations change, they've grown up with, you know, the Will and Graces and all of these shows that, you know, it's just normal to be out and to be gay, and you're just seeing more and more athletes and people in the entertainment industry even being more comfortable coming out and speaking, you know, in favor of, or even coming out of the closet and saying they are. It's really amazing, and I say good for him. I mean, when I saw that pop up on Facebook, I was like, that's amazing, especially for somebody who's a new leader in this community to come out and say that. Pride Week is this week? Correct. What can the people of Indianapolis and the surrounding counties expect from all the activities? Well, honestly, we have something for everybody. We have events over the course of 9 days, starting on Friday with an art exhibit in the Arts Garden at Circle Center Mall, and it goes through the whole month of June, so there's an opportunity there for people. But just with our events, I mean, we do everything from a pet pride on Monday, we have a family movie night, we have a family skating party, and so it's really, you know, all walks of life. There's something for everybody, and it's not just for LGBT. It's certainly one of the goals of Indy Pride is to, you know, help with that relationship between the LGBT community and the straight community. And, you know, what we've seen in the festival itself over the past few years is more and more families of all stripes coming out and enjoying the festival. And last year we had over 80,000 people, and so it was an amazing day, and we're looking forward to having an even bigger one this year. And do you think the festival helps bring not only awareness but also educate people who may have questions about whatever it is that they have questions about? Oh, I think it is. I mean, and I always view the festival, I mean, for, you know, for gay youth that may not have that sense of community yet, it gives them an opportunity to come out and feel comfortable, and, you know, even if it's just for one day. And for those looking at it from, you know, the straight community, or, you know, they just come out and they see us in this festival environment, and it just shows that we're just like everybody else, and that, you know, the LGBT community goes across all, you know, socioeconomic, all, you know, age, all type, you know, race, gender, all sorts. And so I think it really does show, you know, that we're just normal, just like everybody else. Well, and you have a good time this week. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. Hopefully. Nicholas Murphy, thank you very much. Thank you so much. Please come back again to Indianapolis this week. We do appreciate your time. Indianapolis has been on the worldwide stage before with sporting events from the Pan Am Games to last year's Super Bowl. Now we're stepping back onto that stage one more time. A major soccer match is coming to Indy this summer with lots of international eyes right on us. We're talking about that and the launch of our own professional soccer team, the Indy 11. The world's most popular sport and two of the world's biggest teams are going to square off inside Lucas Oil Stadium this summer. Chelsea versus Inter Milan will play each other right here in Indianapolis. The Indy 11 and Relevant Sports made the announcement this week inside Lucas Oil Stadium. This friendly match is part of the International Champions Cup tournament that'll be played in select cities across the U.S., including New York, Los Angeles, and Miami. The president of the Indy 11 says hosting this match in Indianapolis would not have been possible if it wasn't for the show of support from all of the new season ticket holders.
Those fans and those numbers are a big part of the reason this game is coming to Indianapolis. They've proven to the folks at Relevant that this game can be successful.
The first round match between Chelsea and Inter Milan at Lucas Oil Stadium will happen on Thursday, August 1st at 8 p.m. Tickets are now on sale. And joining us now is Murray Clark. Mr. Clark is the president of the Indiana Youth Soccer. Welcome to the program. What will be the impact of this international match in Indianapolis?
Well, I think I think people will be surprised at the impact here. We'll we'll have, if we won't fill Lucas Oil, we'll be close to filling it. These are world-class teams playing right here in Indianapolis. It's hugely exciting.
When I think of Indiana, as you know, as Hoosiers, we think of basketball, then we may think of football, and then baseball. Soccer is really a growing sport among our youth. Do we have the capacity to really support?
Well, understand it. Indiana has a huge soccer tradition. You've seen it in Bloomington, 8 national championships at the collegiate level. Notre Dame has had a couple of national championships at the women's level, college-wise. Our soccer association has over 60,000 youth playing under our umbrella, another 4,000 adults, 8,000 coaches, 3,800 referees, 141 membership clubs throughout the state. So soccer is a huge, we draw bigger numbers than Little League in the state. So the numbers are there, and we've known that for years. Now with a new professional team in Indianapolis, the Indy 11, now we've jumped up a bit as far as a profile of our sport.
And sure, without a doubt, if you drive by any open field on a Saturday or a Sunday, there are kids kicking the ball somewhere. But do we have the entertainment dollars to support the Indy 11 long term?
Well, I would argue that the Indy 11, the professional sports team that will start play next year, and then what we see with this international game in Lucas Oil, it really maybe is the final component, if you will, of making Indianapolis not just the national sports capital, but a sports capital worldwide. And I do think there is the support there for the Indy 11 and certainly for this event on August 1st.
And you bring that up because we are also known as the amateur sports capital of the world because the Pan Am Games, Super Bowl was here. How does this add to us sort of becoming that crown jewel of amateur sports?
Well, soccer is the world's most popular sport, and it's a hugely growing sport in this country. And I tell people, if you need any proof of that, look at the huge increase in televised coverage of international soccer events as well as the Major League Soccer in this country. So I really believe that soccer, there is the support in this country for professional soccer, in this community for professional soccer as well as amateur soccer.
Would you also say that the expansion of these sports, whether it's soccer, or the mayor of Indianapolis is now talking about cricket, that this also becomes an economic issue, that as we become a global city and people move here, that they want to be able to see an extension of what they either left behind or what they know?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, and I think that's the mayor's thought as he's looked at regional transit and other international activities. I mean, Indianapolis is a more diverse city than it has been ever before. And to attract people from other cities and throughout this country, capable, smart people, tomorrow's leaders in this community, to attract them, we need a new set of tools on our toolbox, or a different or an added set of tools in our toolbox to make them comfortable and want to come here.
And I would imagine that compared to other sports like either baseball or football, all you need is a field and a couple of places that people can kick the ball, right?
Well, that's true, and there are growing venues in central Indiana, really throughout the state, for soccer, for field sports, for lacrosse, for other sports like that.
Roy Clark, thank you so much. You call it soccer, but a lot of the parts of the world call it football.
I know that. I know that.
Football.
Right.
Roy Clark, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Come back again.
Thanks for having me.
Best of luck with everything. When we come back, the hot topics of the day, we'll sit down with our political insiders. We'll be right back. Time to talk about the hot topics of the day. Two of our political insiders, Democrat Laura Beck and Abdul Hakim Shabazz, editor of IndyPolitics.org. Will the U.S. Supreme Court, how will it weigh on the issue of same-sex marriage?
It is always hard to predict what a court is going to do, and anybody tells you they know what a court's going to do.
Give it a shot, though, Abdul. What do you think they're going to do?
I don't know. I think you were looking at me to answer the question, and he just started talking.
Ladies first.
I know.
All right.
It's okay. You can go first. Do the lawyer.
Okay, we'll give it a shot.
You're smart.
As you guessed it earlier, the Defense of Marriage Act, there's really no rational basis for the federal government to deny same-sex couple benefits, so I can easily see that being thrown out. The Proposition 8 portion, that's a little trickier because you're talking about state constitutions, and unlike some other state issues, you're not talking about rights being taken away from people that were originally given, so that may be a little bit of a dicier one for the court to decide.
I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know what the Supreme Court is going to do. But I do think what's been really interesting is that we're seeing Americans moving more toward being in favor of marriage equality. It's not becoming such an issue as it was to them maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago. And you can really see, too, in the generational trends, how the younger generation that's coming up, it's not an issue to them as well. I think that regardless of how the court rules, what's going to really be, I think, in Indiana, the thing to watch is what does Indiana do in terms of gay marriage? Do they put it on the ballot for 2014? Do we bring it back up again? If I were a Republican running in 2014, I would not want that on the ballot. And I really think...
But you say that, but we are a red state, and I think aren't most of the electorate in our state, are they really going to complain if this issue's on the ballot in 2014?
If you talk to a lot of people privately, they don't want it on the ballot because it becomes another Richard Murdoch type issue. And now you have to talk about the whole marriage thing. And if you look at sort of the dynamics, and like Laura said, the polls on gay marriage are changing. Whereas in 1988 it was 70% opposed, these days it's now 53, 54%.
But are the attitudes changing along for the millennials, the young kids, the kids in college? Or our parents, have they shifted in thought?
Well, here's the thing that I think that you can think about when you look at an issue like marriage equality. Pretty much everybody in Indiana knows someone who is gay or LGBT. So the thing is, it's really hard, in my opinion, to go vote against your gay neighbor and their husband or wife, who they've been in a long-term committed relationship, who live right down the street from you, who are raising a child. So it's when you go and you vote at the ballot, when you vote on Election Day, it's a personal decision you make. And I think that there is a I think there's a group of people who, for their religious beliefs, this is how they feel. They're very strident in those beliefs. But I think when you look at the rest of the world and the rest of kind of the middle of the road, you do, Abdul's right, you do run the risk of a Richard Murdoch type gaffe that can happen.
The Supreme Court said no in consideration of whether or not it should take on the case of whether the state could stop funding for Planned Parenthood. Where does this now go?
We spoke to the governor earlier this week about that exact same thing. Now, what does your administration do? So the Supreme Court is not going to intervene and say the state cannot defund Planned Parenthood. The governor said they're going to look and see what they might look at all their options. So I would look to see if they try to do anything with administrative rules with respect to Medicaid funding. I won't necessarily say stifle Planned Parenthood, but you have a governor that's very pro-life, a very pro-life legislature. I don't think this is necessarily the end of this issue.
This is also, though, an issue that does not play well with women. And when you look at some of the numbers from the 2012 elections, it is something that does not play well with women. What we're talking about here we're talking about preventative cancer screenings, pap smears, breast cancer exams for women. And so, and the women in our state who are really the most economically disadvantaged. And so we're sending this message that, oh yes, we want you to bring a child into this world and to do all these things, but we don't want you to have health care. We don't want you to get screened for cancer, so you can take care of your child. We're sending a lot of mixed messages. And with regards to Governor Pence, what's going to be fascinating to watch is he stood up at press conferences. John Gregg ran the campaign ad with him threatening to shut down the federal government over Planned Parenthood funding. So what will he do here when he's really tried to take a middle-of-the-road stance, I think, during the last session? So what's he going to do here, and how's this going to play out?
Do you want to say something? You look like you...
No, I mean, basically, they'll look up and see what they might be able to do.
I'm looking at you.
Thank you.
Okay, you talk now. I'm sorry.
Guy talking about this issue. Great, thanks.
I'm not letting Abdul talk much today.
I mean, no, the thing is what might they be able to do administratively? Because that would be the only rule that they may have. I would also look for more legislation, maybe in the regulation of Planned Parenthood type providers. But right now, I mean, that's what they're doing now, just basically check to see what their options are.
Healthcare. October 1 is a big day. The Affordable Health Care Act signups begin.
I'm going to be in line. I'm ready.
Will that be a big success, or are we going to see a major failure?
This is going to be a failure of titanic proportions. We're already seeing what's happening in Fort Wayne. You got the Fort Wayne School District moving a bunch of its full-time employees to part-time in part because they won't be able to provide health care for the Affordable Care Act. We're in stories from companies all across Indiana how they may start moving people to part-time. So you're going to be probably in line with a lot of other people, probably, because we'll be able to get it with their employer.
Because if you saw what I had to pay right now, it would be appalling. Here's the thing about health care. It's new. It's different. It's going to take some time. I think a lot of this, though, with people is it's fear of the unknown. It's a lot of fear of the unknown. People don't like change. And I really think that the Affordable Care Act is going to give so much more access to people in terms of their health care. I've shared this before. I have pre-existing conditions for chronic pain and fibromyalgia. I can't get health care on my own. I cannot get health care on my own. I couldn't get health care on my own for my son if something were to happen to my husband.
So you think it'll be a success? It will not be a failure?
Because I think there are more people out there like me. I think there are more people out there who have been dinged by the insurance companies and just simply can't get a fair shake, and so they either are relegated to going to the emergency room all the time, or they are paying through the nose, or they're in jobs that maybe they wouldn't be in if they had access to more health care. So, President Obama has identified this as one of the major issues when he was campaigning. It always has been for him, and I really think that we will see some successes.
But I think, unfortunately, for every story like Laura's, there's going to be 10 or 12 other people where the results aren't going to be that great. I mean, look at what's happening up in Fort Wayne. Here are 600 people who are basically losing their full-time jobs and being moved to part-time employment. And so, happy for you.
I think some of this is fear, but I also think, though, that some of this is fear of the unknown. It's people who are a little nervous, they're a little worried about how it's going. I know in California things are transitioning well, so it's going to be, I think, a case-by-case basis. I think it's going to take time, but
anytime somebody says from the federal government, I'm here to help, run away.
At the same time, we're just going to keep arguing with each other.
The debate will continue in the green room. Stay up to date on political news anytime by following our insiders, Lara, Jennifer, Kip, and Abdul, on our Capitol Watch blog. You can find the link on the webpage, theindychannel.com. Indianapolis This Week continues after the break. Remember, this is Indy Pride Week, and there are plenty of events happening throughout this week. Today, a picnic will be held in Garfield Park in just over an hour at noon. Then a softball game will be played at the park as well, starting at 2 o'clock. That's it for this edition of Indianapolis This Week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rafael Sanchez. Have a great day.